Welcome to the Inspiring Tech Leaders podcast with me, Dave Roberts. In collaboration with Foundry, I'm pleased to share with you the final part of the recent CIO100 live session, where the judges for the 2022 cohorts talk about the importance of a diverse IT community. This third episode features Madhu Bhabuta, Janet Day, and myself talking with the CIO UK Editor, Doug Drinkwater. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Fantastic. So we've got 20 minutes left. I'm going to be joined by Janet Day, Dave Roberts, and Madhu. So I guess finally, this is more on community. And really, we've spoken about best practice. We've spoken about gaining the confidence to apply. I think it's important to kind of really point out that the CIO100 is an open and inclusive community from people of all backgrounds, different walks of life. Yes, there's people that come from a very technical background. Increasingly, as we see people moving into CIO roles, are coming from different roles entirely. So, Jenny, I want to start with yourself, because I think being a woman in technology, we obviously hear the stories of women in tech, and the progress, though I say it, is probably slower than most people would like. How would you see the importance of the community like CIO100 being open to all backgrounds, really?
Well, firstly, I think that there's a danger for everyone, and we've talked a bit about the sort of imposter syndrome and things like this, but I think there's a danger just generically for lots of people to think, oh yeah, I am the CIO and I'm the CIO in this sort of organisation, and that wouldn't be the same as being the CIO in a huge retail environment or a huge manufacturing environment. So I'm not going to I'm not going to get anywhere if I do apply, because my role's much smaller, or B, even if I did get somewhere, what would I gain from that community? And I think I'm going to answer it personally, that I worked in a professional service environment, and when I applied, I think I did it because, as much as anything, I wanted the business to be aware that technology in the professional service environment was just as significant as it was to a huge manufacturing environment or an international banking environment or something like that. Mm-hmm. And therefore, it was to, I think, achieve status for the whole team, I got some personal status, but it was really about the team, but also about the positioning of the team within the business. And what I gained personally, of course, was that I did find myself in a community of people who, whilst they weren't doing exactly the same job, 85 to 90% of what we did felt like a horrible overlap. And every time anybody spoke about a pain, we all realized it was the same pain, no matter what industry you were in. So I think that inclusivity point, that gain, not just for you personally, not just for the team, but for the status of the team within the business, is a really important consideration.
Yeah. Well, Dave, what's your thoughts?
Well, I think Janet's touched on it there. I think it's really important to have a diverse sector of different markets and also organizational sizes as well. Mm-hmm. So, and cultures within those organizations. And, I take on my own experiences, having been in the CIO100 previously and been a judge for the last 3 years. But give an example. I remember speaking with Craig Walker, who at the time was the CIO for Shell Downstream. And we were talking about the different challenges that we have, and it was interesting that we were at different scales but exactly the same challenges. So I was working in an organization probably around 1,000 people. Craig's working in an organization of around 86,000 people, and we're working on similar types of issues. And I think just because the size and scale doesn't make a difference. So I think I would definitely encourage people from all different enterprise, SMEs, not-for-profits. And I think, if we look at, you mentioned before about Danny Asias. Mm-hmm. So, Danny in 2020 was ranked the number one CIO in the CIO100. And that was really for, how much he was achieving with a relatively small team. But I think we were all blown away as a judging panel just by, how much he'd done. So I wouldn't let the size of organization influence you putting something forward. It's really about, what is the value that you're creating for either your business, the community that you work in, and I think you talked a bit about it before, the so what, what differences are you actually making? And I think if you can articulate that within your application and really tell the story, to Kevin's earlier point, in a concise way, but also making sure that you're bringing out that tangible evidence and data for the reader. That's a perfect submission in my view.
100%. And just on your point about industries there, Dave, I think last year I counted as the top 30. So for those who aren't aware, we rank 1 to 30 and 31 to 100 aren't ranked. And the top 30, I think we had 10 from public sector. So again, this goes to show the quality of submissions in that particular industry or field last year. I want to come on to Madhu. I'll come to you first, and Janet, welcome your thoughts, and Dave too. And that's how we encourage people from all groups, and that includes minority groups, to come forward. Because I do think there's a perception, perhaps a lingering one, in IT that is kind of, dare I say it, kind of white, male and stale. And that's not being derogatory to Dave or myself, of course. But I remember speaking to Rich Corbridge recently. He said, I think we're all sick of being white male and 40 plus, I think was his expression. But how do we encourage more people to come forward from minority groups? Because I do think personally, just being completely transparent, there's room for growth for what we can do here as a community as well. So to give you some figures, so 19% of the 100 last year were women. That's probably par for what the IT industry, we're working on 19% women in the IT industry. In terms of kind of Asian and Black leaders, only 10% made the 100. So again, much room to go there. I think we are moving in needle in some respects. So the next CIO, we're about 50-50 men and female, a bit better on the ethnicity score. But again, it just goes to show that we're trying it as an organisation improve this, but there's definitely room for improvement. So Madhu, what's your opening thoughts on that? And then Janet, I'll come to you.
So my first thought is, this is a celebration of IT. I reiterate that CIO100 is for every single person. I am a embodiment of that. I was in the list in 2015, and I worked for the MOD at that time for a small agency called the United Kingdom Hydrographic Office. So genuinely, it is for everybody. And the other thing is that if people from ethnic backgrounds and diverse backgrounds don't apply, then the list will continue to be as it is. So it's similar to voting. So if you don't vote and you don't get a result that you wanted, then I'm afraid there is nothing anybody can do about it. Must have the courage. You have people like myself, like Kevin, of Black backgrounds. You have Janet on the panel, who is a female, with myself. You can see that CIO100 is inclusive, and I would say apply and have your story read, have your story acknowledged, and give yourself a chance. So if you don't give yourself a chance, you don't stand up, you don't lean in, then I'm afraid you have yourself to blame. You've got the role models in front of you. Please come along, come on the journey with us, and we can all celebrate IT together, show the world what IT can do. As Janet said, it was about acknowledging the work that her team had done. Similar to me, I wanted the work that I was doing to be acknowledged, that the digital transformation we were putting in place was not just the CIO's vision, it was everybody's vision. So those things are important, and that's what I'd really encourage everybody on the call to do today.
Fantastic. Thank you. Janet, what are your thoughts?
Well, Madhu's right. Probably she and I aren't the best examples to ask that question of, because we're here, aren't we? And both of us were listed, and both of us did it for lots of reasons. I've always regarded myself as a peopleist, so I don't think I'm a feminist. I think I'm an equalist or a peopleist. I'm much more interested in what somebody can do than anything about their background, other than perhaps the jobs they've had or the environment they've worked through, so that I can get a pattern for the sort of person they are. And I think I would just say to anyone that there is no boundary in this environment to being good at what you do. So just because you are, and I apologise, stale, male and grey, doesn't stop you being good at what you're doing any more than being a woman or being part of a different ethnic group or being part of a different persuasion in terms of religion. Doesn't stop you being good at what you're doing. They're attributes that you carry with you. They're part of your flag. They are part of you, but they should never be regarded as obstacles. So I think it is a true celebration of achieving things. And I think for some people that journey has been more difficult, and so maybe we as a group of judges should think carefully about just looking at the background from which somebody has achieved what they've achieved. And I think that we should be looking at, and I would encourage anyone listening to this call to think about the amazing things you've achieved in your job, because everyone doing that CIO role has to achieve amazing things, and think about how you want to share with the world how exciting and how much fun you've had from it, and therefore how much fun other people joining that environment could get.
Yeah, makes sense. Right, I guess there's a point there about role modeling, isn't there, really? That the fact that people can look up to people in as part of the judging team or part of the CIO100 and aspire to do that. If we think of diversity isn't a problem in here and now, it's a problem in STEM, in universities and schools as well. They can aspire to be those leaders of the future. And that obviously cuts across everybody. I remember actually, Dave, talking of Danny, I remember him saying that seeing Anna Barsby as number one, I think back in 2015 it was, he kind of thought, well, I want to get to that as well. So you can draw inspiration from any number of sources. It doesn't have to necessarily be the person of the same gender, for example. What's your thoughts, Dave?
Well, I think one of the previous sessions we talked about the imposter syndrome, and I think that also comes out where people, as we've said before, may not think that they're ready for it, or they haven't quite achieved as much as they could do. And I would just again echo the comments of Madhu and Janet, and just put yourself forward for the 100, because it's, if anything, it's a really good experience to go through. Having done it myself, it's a good way of capturing your achievements over the last 12 months. So it's almost like writing a diary of what you've done and what your achievements are, and that's very beneficial for your work within your own organization. It's not just a piece of work for the 100. So I would encourage doing that as a really good exercise to go through. But I think also offer any advice or mentoring to people who got any questions about that outside of this session as well. I'm more than happy to answer any questions people may have.
Fantastic, thanks, Dave. Talking of questions, we've got about 5 minutes left, so if anyone does have any questions, please do shout now or afterwards. But I guess my final question to all of you, which has been asked to all the judges today, is what final tips would you have, and what should you avoid? Because I think that's equally as important. And Dave, I think I know your answer, but I'm going to start with you.
I touched on it before, which is the bringing out the so what of your application. So people understanding what value have you driven within your organization. It is important that you don't go on, as Kevin said, war and peace. Try and make it concise, but it's really important to have that tangible evidence that backs up why you say you're a great leader, or why you've been through transformation in your business. What does that actually look like? What was the end result, and what was the value that provided? So if you can capture that in the applications, I think that really helps your application stand out.
Mm-hmm. Janet, what do you think?
Well, I think I'm going to put the avoid in first. So avoid assuming people know the buzzwords of your industry. So actually just make sure if there's something that's very peculiar to the industry you're in, that you translate it in a way that a judge or a panel of judges who don't know that industry would be able to comprehend and understand. But the second thing I'd say, and it came across to me horribly clearly, is make sure when you look at the question, that the answer that you frame actually addresses the question, because quite often people have an agenda of something they want to tell us, and they're important things, and there is facility on the form, almost a free form things. But if somebody asks, if the question asks you about how are you dealing with diversity in your team, actually make sure you talk about diversity in the response, rather than some generic things that you've done that have allowed other people to engage in something. So I think it's twofold. It's about making sure you answer the questions you ask, but use the opportunity to free form those things that you think it's really important for the panel to know about you.
Yeah. Perfect. And Madhu, what's your final? Well, we've heard your top tips already, but anything further to add, actually?
It's the same thing. But the thing I'd encourage people to avoid is going down an IT tunnel. So I didn't talk about what to avoid in the previous session, but I would really encourage whoever is applying to have a very holistic view of what they've done, a connection to the business. And as Dave said, the so what needs to come out really clearly. Do avoid just telling us about IT. Link it to the digital transformation, link it to the outcomes. So that will make your application really stand out and be a powerful voice for you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Madhu. I think we may have lost Janet. I know she had to jump to her next meeting, but I guess just the final tips actually for me that I think we have spoke about through the course of this conversation. I think today's point, data evidence is really key. I think testimonials actually can be quite strong as well if you've got testimonials from line managers or superiors. And I think just be open and honest and have a degree of humility, I guess, as well, in terms of be yourself as much as you can. So we've got actually one final question from Greg. Afternoon, Greg. Previously been in the CIO100, obviously, I think from 2015 to 2020. Is there any value in entering again 2022, or better to stand aside for newcomers? That's a great question. I've heard a few times. Dave, I'm going to get your thoughts first. I may chip in on that as well, but Dave, over to you first.
I would still encourage Greg to put a submission forward, because I think people are always going through a journey. They're always going through levels of change, and we all learn, and we continue to learn from each other. So I think, Greg's obviously a very important part of that community, and I'd encourage him to stay within it.
Yeah, I'll also add to that, Dave, on the journey that one thing that struck me last year was the cycles you miss. You see people that are probably in year one of their transformation program, or perhaps year 2 or year 3. So the submission quality perhaps can differ in terms of where you are on that journey. So Greg would very much appeal to you to enter, and that applies to anyone else that's a former CIO100 member and thinking of getting back in. No restriction on that front. Right, there's no more questions. I'm going to leave it there. Janet, thanks for joining us once again. Madhu, thanks for not only this session, but the one before. And Dave, as always, great to chat, and thanks for your time as well.
My pleasure.
And Ian as well. Thank you. Thanks all.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you, Doug. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All the best, everyone.
Please remember to subscribe to the podcast and stay tuned for more inspiring tech leaders.